Hello, you're watching A News. I'm Dilek Tuna. Here are your top stories. The APEC summit adopts declarations on AI and demographic change. Türkiye announces the Gaza meeting amid ceasefire concerns. And Brazil calls for international support for climate-vulnerable nations ahead of COP30. The APEC summit wraps up in Gyeongju, South Korea. Key discussions focused on regional cooperation, artificial intelligence and demographic change, while China announced it will host next year's summit in Shenzhen.
Leaders of 21 Asia-Pacific nations have concluded the APEC summit in the South Korean city of Gyeongju, adopting the Gyeongju Declaration, a roadmap to strengthen regional cooperation and safeguard global economic stability. Over 2 days of discussions, leaders agreed to deepen collaboration on trade, investment and technology, emphasizing the need for a united response to global challenges.
This year, through the Gyeongju Declaration, we restored cooperation among APEC members and broadened APEC's horizons as a platform to tackle humanity's shared challenges by launching the AI Initiative and the APEC Joint Framework for responding to demographic change.
The highlight of the summit was the meeting between US President Donald Trump and China's Xi Jinping. The two leaders reached an agreement to de-escalate their trade dispute. Soon after the talks, President Trump departed South Korea, allowing Xi to take center stage at the summit.
China will host the 33rd APEC leaders meeting in Shenzhen, Guangdong province, in November next year.
President Xi's announcement that China will host the next APEC summit in 2026 underscores Beijing's growing influence in shaping the region's economic agenda.
The Chinese government comes out with its priorities. We're looking for more openness, a focus on innovation and on cooperation as well. Connectivity has been something that China has focused on over the past 10 years at least, building throughout its rail network. Are there lessons that can be learned through their own domestic processes as well? And then again, talking about trade, how has China trade changed over the past few years? What is China exporting now compared to the 25 years ago? All of our economies go through changes, so it'll be interesting to hear through the next plan and through the APEC hosting, what we can learn from that.
Pedrosa added that more openness and innovation will be essential for the Asia-Pacific economy in the years ahead. China has previously hosted APEC summits in 2001 and 2014 and will once again welcome world leaders in 2026, this time in the tech hub of Shenzhen.
High-level talks between Chinese and European Union trade delegations have concluded in the Belgian capital. Both sides were tight-lipped immediately after the day-long meeting with European Commissioner Maroš Šefčovič, expected to provide an update on Saturday. Tensions between the EU and China have been building over recent months, especially over the issue of China's export controls on rare earths. William Denslow reports from Brussels.
This high-level technical meeting held between Chinese and European Commission trade delegations came at an incredibly precarious time, especially for Europe's auto industry. The reason for that is a geopolitical spat between the Netherlands and China, where the Netherlands has taken back control of a chip maker that's owned by a Chinese firm, citing national security concerns. Now, that spat has led to huge concerns about the supply of chips used in auto vehicles. Now, the auto sector and industry experts from that sector have warned that it could just be days before the impacts of that spat and the disruption of the supply chain could start to be widely felt. They're calling for a swift resolution. This is one part of a broader dispute when it comes to the export of rare earths, these crucial technology used in everyday chips, vital for electronics in so many devices. Now, we know that earlier this week there was seemingly a breakthrough between the United States and China after President Trump and President Xi met just a few days ago. Real questions now about how that meeting will have a knock-on effect for the EU's stance with China, and will that mean there'll be more of a flow of these chips into the European Union going forward? We reporters, including myself, have asked what exactly this will mean. Well, the Commission has been tight-lipped going into this meeting. All eyes will be on the exact resolution, what came out of Friday's meeting. So all eyes will be on that. When it comes to the European Union's efforts to better protect its supply chains going forward, well, we've heard from Henna Virkkunen, the tech commissioner, who said that as part of the CHIPS 2.0 plan that the Commission is working on, that aims to better anticipate disruptions, to invest in security of the supply chain, as well as do more when it comes to stockpiling and diversification when it comes to these critical materials. But in the meantime, while the European Union tries to ramp up its production, its recycling of these vital chips, there are real hopes from industry here in Europe that these high-level talks with Chinese counterparts can begin to yield real results when it comes to the flow of these chips into Europe. William Denslow, Frey News, Brussels.
Chinese electric vehicles are gaining traction across Europe. The BYD EVs have been registered nearly 5 times as much as last year, pushing the Chinese automaker closer to Tesla's market share. For more on the rise of Chinese EVs, we go to Beijing and our Maknoor Maktoum.
Chinese electric vehicle giant BYD saw its new car registrations in Europe soar nearly 5-fold in September 2025, reaching just under 25,000 units, according to industry data. The surge narrowed its gap with market leader Tesla, which logged about 39,800 registrations, down roughly 10% year-on-year. BYD's sharp growth reflects its aggressive expansion strategy across Europe, offering competitively priced models such as Arrow 3, Dolphin, and Seal, alongside a growing dealership network and localized marketing. The company's planned manufacturing plant in Hungary also signals long-term commitment to the region and aims to reduce costs and tariff exposure. The rise is driven by a mix of affordable pricing, a broader model lineup, and tight supply chain control that allows BYD to keep costs low despite global inflation pressures. Strong partnerships with local dealers have expanded reach in key markets such as Germany, France, and the UK, while local production plans have boosted confidence among European regulators and consumers. According to industry experts, BYD's combination of cost efficiency, rapid localization, and product variety is helping it challenge Tesla's dominance and reshaping Europe's EV landscape, highlighting China's growing influence in the global electric vehicle market. One of them, News, Beijing.
Serbia marks a year since the tragic Novi Sad railway station collapse, as thousands of students and citizens gather to honour the 16 victims and demand political change. The nationwide movement led by students and professors has reignited hope and activism across the country.
Thousands of students from across Serbia gathered in Novi Sad on Friday, on the eve of the first anniversary of last November's railway station roof collapse that claimed 16 lives. The tragedy sparked a largely peaceful nationwide protest movement led by university students and professors, challenging President Alexander Vucic's 13-year rule.
The feelings are positive, but I cannot explain why. We believe, and I feel, that the students have brought hope back to us. That means a lot after the hopelessness we have lived in for the last 15 to 20 years. Now it must get better. We have to go all the way, and I think the end is near.
Demonstrators marching from various cities across the country are calling for a snap election, aiming to remove Vučić and his Serbian Progressive Party from power.
We have been talking here for 30 years, protesting the whole time, and everything seems the same, but we still hope for change. We will not give up. Sometimes we get tired, but we keep going.
Today's commemoration in Novi Sad will be held outside the railway station, featuring 16 minutes of silence, followed by speeches from students.
Society has changed, and that is the greatest achievement that has happened to us. I think the students have woken people up, and this march they are holding is something very beautiful and important.
Farmers on tractors, motorcyclists and cyclists joined the procession, forming a solidarity convoy across the city, with crowds waving Serbian flags and holding flares. Protesters said the student movement has reignited public engagement and activism across Serbia.
Türkiye is set to host several foreign ministers in Istanbul on Monday to discuss the Gaza ceasefire and steps for a possible stabilization force. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan announced the meeting following talks with his Estonian counterpart Margus Taşkına in Ankara. He said the talks would gather foreign ministers of countries that took part in a meeting with US President Donald Trump in New York in September, including Türkiye, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, Jordan, Pakistan and Indonesia. Both ministers called for stronger international efforts to ensure humanitarian access and maintain peace.
Firstly, negotiations with the parties are continually ongoing to ensure the ceasefire remains in place and to avoid misunderstandings. Necessary efforts are underway to ensure the inflow of humanitarian aid. Furthermore, how to proceed to the second phase, how to implement Stability Force and other peace plan specified bodies are currently under discussion with guarantor countries. Some are in advanced discussions, while others are in the early stages.
The humanitarian situation in Gaza is truly catastrophic, and significant pressure must be applied on Israel. We thank Turkey once again for its efforts regarding Gaza. Estonia continues delivering humanitarian assistance to Gaza through UNRWA and other organizations, and we support a two-state solution in line with UN resolutions.
Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan met with Hamas Political Bureau's senior official Khalil al-Kaya and other members in Istanbul on Saturday. Al-Haya survived an Israeli raid on Qatar last month and was the chief negotiator for Hamas in indirect talks with Israeli counterparts over President Donald Trump's plan to end the Gaza war. The meeting comes ahead of Monday's meeting in Istanbul of the foreign ministers of guarantor countries in Trump's plan. According to the Turkish Foreign Ministry, Fidan and Hamas members discussed the state of the ceasefire in Gaza and the need for humanitarian aid. So the meeting comes as discussions gather pace over a possible international peacekeeping mission in Gaza. According to US President Donald Trump's peace plan, the proposed stabilization force would include personnel from Azerbaijan, Indonesia and Pakistan. But questions remain over who would lead it and whether Israel would cooperate with such an arrangement. Now joining me to unpack is Lamis Jadid. She's a political analyst from Lisbon, Portugal. Lamis, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Turkey's engagement with Hamas leaders shows it's keeping an open line with all sides. What's Ankara hoping to achieve through its outreach, and how might it impact its relations with Washington and Tel Aviv?
I believe that Ankara is doing exactly what they are supposed to do, the government in Ankara. I think they are replacing somehow the intermediate role that was mainly in Qatar, and we saw recently the big diplomatic problem that happened between the two countries, Qatar and Israel, after the hit of the Hamas leadership in Qatar. And I think to avoid this, partly after the hit is just very recent, now Turkey stepped in and showed itself as a guarantee or a mediator in the coming peace deal. There is nobody's sure it will be a peace deal, but a deal between Israel and Hamas. So I believe it's taking just changing roles between Qatar and Turkey.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and let's talk about the proposed Gaza stabilization force, Lamis, involving troops from Azerbaijan, Indonesia and Pakistan. It certainly sounds ambitious. How realistic is it, both politically and operationally, do you think?
I think first we need to talk about stopping violence, about stopping the killing and improving even slightly the situation of the Gazawi people now. I think Hamas is in a very difficult situation because they are in front of a deal that they cannot say no to it because they don't want to be seen internationally as the people who stopped any kind of progress in this extraordinary massacre that's been taking place a while now and in front of all our eyes, the world's eyes. So I believe now they have to accept it, whatever will bring the other side of proposals. I think they are going to go for it. Mainly because what's the alternative for them? And I think it looks to me that is a little there is a little bit regional involvement, which might make it a little bit less sensitive to the Palestinian people to accept, especially because mainly all the condition is being made by the Israeli, but we hope it could lead us to any kind of understanding, start some kind of peace if we could dream of it.
And Israel has resisted any foreign deployment inside Gaza. Given the current political climate, could Tel Aviv ever consent to such an international presence? Are they going to succumb to this international consensus finally?
Very interesting question. Yes, I think Israel is not being known to compromise a lot when it comes to its goals or the end of its goal, really, which is finishing the presence of Hamas in Gaza first and stopping all kinds of the existence of resistance in Gaza. Of course, this is until now. It's been going on for a while, and I'm not sure the Israeli is ready to go for any compromise when it comes to why they launched the war at first. And one of these reasons is to finish Hamas. So now, are they willing to understand maybe after the presence of other regional powers as the guarantee of peace in Gaza? This is another question, but for the time being, I'm not sure they are going to finish any business if their goal or end goal is not being met.
Okay, Lamis, and lastly, from a regional standpoint, if this peace mission does materialize, what could it mean for Turkey's strategic positioning? Would it emerge as a key broker or risk diplomatic backlash from Western allies?
I don't believe that the West, by any means, will not support any kind of deals if Turkey was involved or any other else was involved in this deal. But I think the point here is what Turkey is doing in this deal. Why now also? Though we know that Turkey and Israel has lots of issues in Syria already. They are both trying to put hands on part of Syria. They have clashed agenda in Syria. And I think as a member of the NATO also, Turkey is still trying to play other roles when it comes maybe to the Palestinian case here. Especially they consider themselves to be the leader of the Muslim world. I think the Turks are always trying to use as many cards as possible, and what they could not achieve maybe in Syria, they might compensate it a little bit or negotiate with Israel about in Gaza.
Okay, Lamis, thank you so much for joining us on the program. Thanks for your insight.
Thank you.
The Federal Aviation Administration delayed flights at Austin, Newark and Nashville airports on Friday due to the government shutdown and ongoing air traffic controller shortages. According to FlightAware, 2,200 flights in the US were delayed and 300 were cancelled. The shutdown has forced 13,000 air traffic controllers and 50,000 TSA officers to work without pay. Airlines have urged Congress to take action to reopen the government. The FAA is currently short of 3,500 air traffic controllers, many of whom were already working extra hours. After 3 days of violent protests in Tanzania, at least 500 people have been killed in clashes with security forces. Demonstrations erupted nationwide during Wednesday's vote, with protesters angered by the exclusion of President Samia Suluhu Hassan's two main challengers from the race and what they describe as rising repression of government critics. Hassan, who inherited the presidency in 2021, went on to win her first presidential election. Brazil is stepping up its push for global action on climate change, urging nations to better support countries most at risk. The appeal comes as the country prepares to host the COP30 Leaders Summit in Belém next week.
Brazil is urging greater international cooperation to help vulnerable countries confront climate change. Environment Minister Marina Silva spoke at a press conference ahead of the COP30 Leaders Summit, which begins next week in Belém, where Brazil is also expected to rally support for its forest conservation financing mechanism, following its $1 billion pledge.
The maxim of acting locally and thinking globally no longer holds true without global aid to provide local responses to the problem of climate change. The most vulnerable countries will continue to pay the highest price and the greatest cost.
The summit will bring together 143 delegations and 57 heads of state or government, setting the tone for negotiations at the COP30 conference, which runs from November 10th to 21st. As host, Brazil says it remains committed to strengthening multilateralism and advancing the Paris Agreement, which aims to keep the rise in global average temperatures well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels.
Egypt is opening the Grand Egyptian Museum near the Great Pyramid of Khufu at Giza. Billed as the world's largest archaeological museum, it will house around 100,000 artifacts spanning roughly 7 millennia of Egyptian history, from the pre-dynastic period through the Greek and Roman eras. Work on the museum began in 1992 when authorities set aside a 117-acre site near the Giza pyramids for what would become one of the largest cultural institutions in the world. Global gold demand has surged to a record high, driven by strong investor interest. Data from the World Gold Council shows both volume and value hitting unprecedented levels between July and September.
Global gold demand hit a record high in the third quarter, with both volume and value reaching unprecedented levels. The World Gold Council says total demand rose 3% year-on-year to 1,313 tonnes between July and September, while the value of that demand surged 44% to $146 billion, the highest ever recorded for a single quarter. Investment demand continued to drive the market. Global gold investment jumped 47% to 537 tonnes, making up 55% of total net demand. Despite high prices, central banks kept buying, with net purchases reaching 220 tonnes in the third quarter, up 28% from the previous quarter and 10% higher year on year. The surge in gold demand has fueled renewed interest in gold prospecting in Arizona. More people are heading out with metal detectors, dry mining gear and other tools.
So basically what we ran was about 1 5-gallon bucket full of dirt, and that's what came out. You run 40 of those, that's almost $100 worth of gold right there, if you run about 40 of them.
Analysts say a weaker US dollar, expectations of Federal Reserve rate cuts and rising stagflation risks are likely to keep supporting gold investment demand in the months ahead.
Pakistan has reopened the Torkham border crossing with Afghanistan, allowing the return of Afghan refugees and the resumption of trade, officials said on Saturday, according to Dawn. The border, closed since October the 11th following clashes between security forces, has now been reopened for both repatriation and commercial traffic. Qureshi Badloon, head of the Information and Culture Department in Afghanistan's Nangarhar province, also confirmed the reopening. Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan have signed a military cooperation plan for 2026 during Azerbaijani Defense Minister Zakir Hasanov's visit to Kazakhstan. In Almaty, Hasanov met with his Kazakh counterpart Dauran Kosanov to discuss future collaboration in military, technical and educational fields. Azerbaijan's defense ministry said the two countries reaffirmed that their partnership is built on friendship and brotherhood and agreed to further strengthen defense ties. To discuss Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan military cooperation with us further is Ibrahim Mamadov, head of the Turkic Western Engagement Initiative at Danube Institute from Budapest, Hungary. Welcome to the program, Ibrahim.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be.
Now, what's the broader significance of this new military cooperation plan between Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan? What does it signal about their evolving defense partnership?
Well, first, we have to consider the timing of signing of this partnership. It took place just in less than 2 weeks after the presidential summit, where the goal was agreed to reach 1 billion trade turnover between Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan. Another thing we should consider that Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan overall have strategically important initiatives, such as the terminal in the port of Aktau, terminal in the port of Alat, which completely contribute to
Okay, so we had a little bit of technical difficulty with the sound, but I'll just double check. Ibrahim, can you hear me again?
Yes, I can.
Okay, we've got you back.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. So please continue with the rest of your answer to the first question, and then I'll move on to the next one.
Yes, of course.
You mentioned the initiative, the terminals in Aktau, and then there's a second terminal. We can take it from there.
Yes, great. So the second terminal is in the port of Alat. And along with that, this perfectly contributes to the general Trans-Caspian infrastructure. And adding to that also that Kazakhstan exports 1/3 of its oil exports to Europe through Azerbaijan. And another significant point that the soon opening of Zangezur corridor and removal of all the block on the trade through the territory of Azerbaijan for Armenia gives significant hope for the greater increase of the importance of Trans-Caspian corridor. Thus, this military cooperation is important not only for bilateral cooperation between Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan, but overall for the Silk Road region and greater coordination within it, because many strategic initiatives pass through these two countries.
Okay, and Ibrahim, how do these ties fit within the wider regional context, particularly the Caspian Sea security framework and the Turkic states alliance?
Absolutely. So it is very important to look at this agreement on the broader perspective, as I mentioned in the earlier question. So Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan, they enjoy the strategic partnership and allied relation status. When we look into the broader OTS, Turkey, Azerbaijan are allies, Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan are allies, Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan are allies. And if we consider further the proposal of His Excellency Ilham Aliyev to host the OTS military drills in 2026, it's very important to add up this cooperation plan as well, because it includes within itself the drills between Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan and greater military technical and military educational cooperation. So this agreement perfectly fits into the security of all infrastructural and strategic initiatives that are happening not only between the two countries, but in the general context in Caucasus, in Central Asia, and perfectly lay foundation for greater cooperation within OTS as well.
Okay, and Ibrahim, lastly, looking ahead, could this agreement reshape defence dynamics in the Caspian region, or is it more about symbolic unity between two closely aligned nations?
Well, I definitely believe that this can reshape because such agreement took place also last year in September during the Azerbaijan International Defense Exhibition, where Azerbaijani Defense Minister Zakir Hasanov signed the plan for 2025 with Ruslan Zhankiselkov. And this year with Dauran Kosanov, so we see the continuity within those agreements, and we see greater increase in trade turnover through the Trans-Caspian corridor. We see greater cooperation in all fields with the Gabela Declaration. We saw a significant number of spheres that were covered within the declaration and agreements that have been signed after the summit between the presidents of Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan. And considering that within this node, it's very important that Azerbaijan is ally of Turkey, which is a NATO member country. So for Central Asian countries to renew their defense capabilities, it is critical to cooperate with Azerbaijan. Hence, I definitely believe that not only with Kazakhstan, with broader Central Asia, such agreements will persist and military cooperation will deepen with Azerbaijan, because for Central Asian nations, it is one of the rare occasions when they can renew their defense capabilities and improve them under the NATO standards, because Azerbaijan has access to it.
Okay, Ibrahim, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We appreciate your time and your insight.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure.
Uzbekistan is hosting the UNESCO General Conference, bringing together representatives from nearly 200 countries. The forum aims to strengthen international dialogue on education, science and culture in the middle of global challenges and rapid technological change.
The conference has opened in the ancient city of Samarkand, marking the first time in 4 decades that UNESCO's main assembly is held outside Paris. More than 2,800 participants from 190 countries have gathered in Uzbekistan, united by shared commitment to preserve cultural and human heritage in the 21st century. President Shavkat Mirziyoyev delivered the opening address, joined by Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić and Slovak President Peter Pellegrini as honorary guests. The Uzbek leader proposed several initiatives, including the School of Artificial Intelligence, a UNESCO Academy for Women's Leadership, and a Green Capital program aimed at combining heritage preservation with innovation and sustainability. The conference also comes as UNESCO faces a period of global turbulence, with the United States planning to withdraw from the organization again by 2026. The forum will determine UNESCO's program and budget for 2027 and elect new leadership. The Samarkand session stands as a symbol of renewal and cooperation, reaffirming the global commitment to safeguard knowledge, culture and shared human values. It is Sevilla Rajapova reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, A News.
Baku hosts the International Art Festival Fly to Baku, bringing together global and local talent in a celebration of creativity and innovation. The three-day event presents the Azerbaijani capital as a cultural bridge between tradition and modernity.
Now creativity and culture are flying over Baku during a festival where art doesn't just hang on walls, it flows through our city. Over these 3 days, Baku becomes a living canvas, inviting every voice to be part of its story.
The International Art Festival, Fly to Baku, Art Weekend, has opened in the capital of Azerbaijan. Organised under the auspices of the Heydar Aliyev Foundation and the IDEA Public Union, the 3-day event highlights the city's role as a meeting point of tradition, modernity and visionary artistic expression.
Really, we're really happy to be in these festivals, and to there are a lot of guests from different countries, and specialists, curators, artists coming Baku now, and really we're happy to be in this amazing event.
Asma Babayeva said during the event, Baku's famous landmarks host more than 40 programs. These include visual arts, performances, music, poetry and immersive technology. The programs bring people together to share a common cultural experience.
Well, I love how Cherry Shahar especially is being used. I think it's important to bring contemporary art into these older spaces so that they can be in dialogue with one another. So for me, it's a real treat to be able to see contemporary art in older buildings and historic buildings in a place that is layered with so much history. And I love the way that you can bring a fresh perspective and new layers through contemporary art into these spaces.
This year's main theme, dedicated to water as a symbol of life, renewal and sustainability, draws attention through the language of art to the ecological challenges facing the world's oceans and seas. The festival aims to inspire reflection on the future of the planet while showcasing the transformative power of creativity.
The main theme of the event is water. We explored its connection with Baku, how it relates to memories and social life, and chose fountains as the central motif. Through an open call, 7 artists were selected to bring their ideas to life around these fountains. This is a great opportunity, especially as 4 of the artists are exhibiting for the first time. We hope the event will continue, as it has already drawn strong public interest across the city. Contemporary art often feels distant from society, and many people are not familiar with modern artists. This initiative aims to bridge that gap, helping people connect and giving young artists a platform to express their ideas.
This theme was new to me, and I conveyed my feelings and thoughts through my performance. I am very happy to have had this opportunity and grateful for the positive feedback from the audience. I hope similar exhibitions will continue in the future.
By celebrating Azerbaijan's rich cultural heritage and its dynamic contemporary art scene, the festival reaffirms Baku's vision as a forward-looking cultural capital, where the future is sensed, shaped and shared through art.
Thank you for joining me. That's your news update for now. Make sure you stay tuned to A News.